Welcome back to the garage. It's time for another episode of Token Teardown. And if you're new here, this is the show where we jack crypto projects up on the lift, shine a light underneath, and tell you straight up whether you're looking at a real machine or something that only looks good parked under showroom lights. Because when a project says it's the future, we don't nod, we don't clap, we don't retweet the thread. We ask a better question. Does this thing actually work when it's driven hard? Today's machine on the lift is Brevis, and to frame this one correctly, you need this. Right car, not a drag strip toy, not a meme build, not something that only wins in a straight line. This is a McLaren 750S situation. Because the 750S isn't impressive just because it's fast. It's impressive because every system is coordinated. Software, aerodynamics, chassis, suspension, nothing operates in isolation. Miss one link and the whole car loses control. That's the lens for today's teardown. Now let's address the elephant in the room. Yes, we're going to talk price. We get it. That's everyone's favorite part. But before we even touch numbers, charts, or targets, there's a more important question we have to answer first. Does this deserve space inside your hard-earned bag, or would that capital be better parked somewhere else with higher returns? Because wallet space is limited. Every token you hold is a decision, and every decision has an opportunity cost. Before we go any further, credit where it's due. Shout out to Triple X, the man doing the heavy lifting behind the scenes. This teardown doesn't happen without him. He's the one digging through Whitepapers, combing through GitHub commits, checking what shipped versus what was promised, and making sure the tech actually exists beyond the marketing. That's how we keep this garage honest. All right, if you're getting value from this kind of work, smash that like, hit follow or subscribe, and share this with your fellow crypto degens. Even that one guy you always see at the gym talking about how SHIB is going to $10 and how market cap doesn't matter. We love this conviction. We just want him to survive this cycle. Lifts going up, lights are on. Before we talk performance, before we talk upside, let's meet the pit crew. Before we talk about what Brevis does or how the tech works, we have to talk about who built it. Because in this garage, we don't trust narratives. We trust the people holding the tools. Brevis wasn't built by anonymous avatars or part-time founders chasing the last cycle. It was built by engineers who come from real infrastructure, where failure isn't theoretical, it's immediate and expensive. At the center of Brevis is Mo Dong, co-founder of Celer Network, and that matters. Brevis wasn't a hype project. It was infrastructure, bridges scaling real value moving across. Chains under adversarial conditions. That kind of environment forces discipline. You don't build systems that kind of work. You build systems that survive pressure or you're gone. That mindset carries straight into Brevis. This team doesn't think in features. They think in failure modes. What breaks first? What can be attacked? What assumptions don't survive real usage? And this isn't a one-person operation. Another T-builder is Noam Nelke, one of the co-founders and the person taking Brevis into serious rooms. He's represented Brevis at major industry events, standing in front of protocol architects, researchers, and infrastructure builders, explaining verifiable computing architectures. Those rooms aren't friendly. They don't clap. They don't care about vibes. They exist to tear weak ideas apart. You don't show up there unless the system can defend itself. Behind them is a deeply technical team with backgrounds in cryptography, distributed systems, and zero knowledge research. These are not Twitter engineers. These are the people worrying about proving time, verifier, costs, throughput, underload, and whether the math actually holds up when the system is stressed. Now look at who backed this thing. Not culture funds, not retail hype, serious infrastructure capital. Those firms don't invest because something sounds cool. They invest because they believe this solves a problem that doesn't go away, even when the market turns. Nobody backs a McLaren program unless they believe the car can finish races, not just look good in the paddock. So when you zoom out and look at the people behind Brevis, the picture becomes clear. This isn't experimentation. This isn't theory. This is a team deliberately building a coordination machine and accepting the complexity that comes with it. Which brings us to the next question. Now that we know who built it, What exactly did they choose to build and why? Let's get under the hood. Now that we know who built Brevis, the next question is simple. What exactly did they decide to build? Because Brevis did not set out to be a blockchain. It's not a new layer 1. It's not a faster Ethereum. It's not trying to replace anything you already use. Brevis is infrastructure that bolts onto existing chains, and the reason it exists comes down to one hard limitation. Blockchains are excellent at verification. They are terrible at computation. That's not a bug. It's the trade-off that makes them secure. Every validator rechecks everything, which keeps the system honest, but it also makes anything involving history, behavior, or heavy logic slow, expensive, or impossible. So when protocols want to answer questions like, what did this wallet do over the last 6 months? How did this user behave across multiple chains? Does this address qualify based on actual activity? They hit a wall. Trying to do that on-chain is like asking a race engine to also be a data center. It's the wrong tool for the job. Brevis fixes this by splitting the work. The thinking happens off-chain, where it's fast and cheap. The truth enforcement happens on-chain, where it's final and trustless. That's the core design. Brevis pulls real blockchain data, runs complex computation off-chain, then brings the result back with cryptographic proof that says this result is correct. No Oracle trust, no server trust, no human discretion. The chain doesn't redo the work. It just verifies the proof. And verification is cheap. This is where the McLaren 750S analogy really clicks. 750S isn't fast because the engine is doing everything. It's fast because software sensors, aero, and chassis each do their job and stay perfectly synchronized. Brevis works the same way. It coordinates data, computation, and proof instead of forcing the blockchain to do all the thinking. And just as important is what Brevis chose not to build. It didn't build a user interface. It didn't try to host applications. It didn't chase retail attention. It chose to be invisible infrastructure because when infrastructure works, nobody notices it. But when it's missing, everything above it breaks. Brevis is designed to give smart contracts something they were never meant to have: memory, context, and the ability to make decisions based on real, verified history, which leads us directly to the part that actually matters. If this thing exists and it works, why do protocols even need it? What is it replacing? That's where we go next. Now that we understand what Brevis is and how it's built, we have to answer the question everyone is actually asking. Why does this even exist? Because here's the part most people don't realize. Almost every so-called decentralized application today is still running on centralized decision-making. Behind the scenes, someone is still running servers. Someone is still writing scripts. Someone is still querying databases and indexers. And someone is still deciding who qualifies, who gets paid, how much, and why. The blockchain just settles the final outcome. That's not full decentralization. That's Web 2 decision-making with Web 3 receipts. Brevis exists to replace that layer. Not blockchains, not smart contracts, not wallets. Brevis replaces the off-chain thinking that everyone pretends isn't there. Right now, if a protocol wants to answer a simple but important question like, did this user trade enough to qualify? Did this wallet behave honestly over time? Did this address interact across chains the way we claim? They usually do one of three things. They run a centralized backend. They rely on an indexer or API, or they manually calculate results and push them on chain. All three require trust. The smart contract cannot verify how the answer was produced. It just has to accept it. Brevis changes that. Brevis says you can still compute off-chain because that's unavoidable, but the result will only be accepted if it comes with cryptographic proof. Not trust me, not trust our server, not trust our data provider. Verify the math, the shift. Instead of trusting people or systems, you verify computation itself. This is why Brevis doesn't feel exciting to retail at first. There's no flashy UI. There's no consumer app. There's no meme narrative. It lives where the boring but critical decisions happen. Rewards, incentives, eligibility, governance logic, risk rules. The places where trust breaks quietly and nobody notices until it's too late. Brevis turns those decisions into something the chain can actually enforce. If the proof checks out, the result stands. If it doesn't, the contract rejects it. No discretion, no overrides, no favoritism, just math. That's why protocols use it. Not because it's cool, not because it's trendy, but because without something like Brevis, they are forced to choose between centralization or not offering the feature at all. Brevis gives them a third option, which brings us to the next question we can't avoid. If this replaces such a critical layer, what are the trade-offs? Where can it break, and what risks come with it? That's next. Now that we understand why Brevis exists and what it replaces, we have to slow down and ask the uncomfortable question. What are the trade-offs? Because nothing this powerful comes without friction. Brevis works because it introduces complexity where blockchains deliberately avoided it. Heavy computation, historical analysis, cross-chain coordination, all of that lives off-chain, and while the results are provable, the system still has moving parts. That means a few things. First, this is not plug and play for everyone. Brevis is built for protocols that actually care about correctness, fairness, and enforcement. If you're just shipping a meme or a simple app, you do not need this. Second, performance depends on incentives. The proofs do not generate themselves. There are provers running hardware, doing real work. If incentives dry up, participation drops, and throughput suffers. That does not break correctness, but it can affect speed and availability. Third, complexity always raises the bar for failure modes. You are relying on cryptography, on circuits, on correct implementation. That is why this team spends so much time on audits, research, and stage rollouts. This is not casual infrastructure. It is serious machinery, and that is the trade. Brevis gives protocols new capabilities, but it demands discipline. If you want fast, loose, and flexible, you use servers. If you want trustless, enforceable, and provable, you accept complexity. Brevis is very clear about which side it is on, which brings us to the last piece we need to understand. If this system is doing all this work, how? Does the token actually fit into it? Is it fuel or is it decoration? All right, now let's talk about tokenomics. And before that word makes this feel complicated, let's simplify it. Tokenomics isn't scary. It isn't academic. It's just the fuel system. That's it. If this were a machine, the token is the fuel. No fuel, no movement. If nothing is happening on the network, fuel demand is low. If the machine is running hard, fuel demand goes up. That's the entire framework. Now here's how Brevis handles fuel. BREV has a fixed total supply of 1 billion tokens. That number does not increase. What changes over time is how much of that supply is actually in circulation. At launch, only a portion of the supply is live. The rest is locked and released over time. Those locked tokens fall into three main buckets: the team, early investors, and ecosystem and community incentives. The important thing is how those unlock. Team and investor tokens are not dumped immediately. They are locked for roughly a year and then released gradually. There is no single cliff where everything hits the market at once. It's a steady, predictable release. That means there was ongoing supply pressure, but no surprise explosions. Now, the ecosystem and community tokens, those enter circulation earlier, and that's intentional because then machine needs fuel to start. Provers need to be paid, developers need incentives, integrations need support. Infrastructure does not bootstrap itself. So yes, tokens enter the market. That's not a flaw. That's how the system comes online. Which brings us to the only question that actually matters. Is fuel being burned faster than it's being released? Because BREV is not a passive token. It is a work token. Every time a protocol uses Brevis, every time computation runs, every time a proof is generated, BREV is spent. Protocols pay, provers earn, stakers secure. If usage grows, demand grows. If demand grows faster than unlocks, the system works. If usage stalls, dilution wins. No hype, no magic, just mechanics. And this part matters. BREV is not a meme. It is not yield. It is not paying you for holding. You are not buying a lottery ticket. You are backing infrastructure. You are making a bet that verified computation, trustless decision-making, and provable logic become more valuable as crypto grows up. Now, here's where things get interesting, because Brevis is not the only project trying to solve this problem. It's not the only one saying blockchains should verify instead of compute. So the next question we have to answer is not about token supply. It's about competition. Who else is on the track? What cars are lined up? And how Brevis actually stacks up when you put it next to them. That's where we go next. Now that we understand the machine and the fuel system, we need to be very clear about the race. Brevis is not competing with everything in crypto. It's competing in a very specific lane. Brevis is trying to replace off-chain decision logic that protocols quietly trust today. Centralized backends, trusted scripts, indexers making decisions that smart contracts cannot verify. That's the layer Brevis is attacking. And in that lane, the competition is actually pretty small. The closest direct competitor is Axiom. Axiom is also a ZK coprocessor. It also focuses on historical on-chain queries, and it also believes computation should be proven, not trusted. Where Axiom differs is philosophy. It is pure ZK everywhere. Maximum correctness, maximum security. That comes with higher cost and higher latency. It's built for precision, not flexibility. Brevis takes a different approach. It uses full ZK when it matters, and faster paths when it doesn't. With ZK as the backstop, that's not cutting corners. That's matching security to context. Another real competitor is Lagrange. Lagrange focuses on ZK coprocessing and large-scale data proofs. Strong overlap in the idea of compute off-chain, prove on-chain. The difference is emphasis. Lagrange leans more toward data movement and cross-chain state. Brevis leans toward application logic, incentives, rewards, governance rules. Same class of problem, different angle. Then there's Succinct. Succinct focuses on proving state and messaging across chains. It's about verifying that something happened elsewhere. That's important infrastructure, but it stops at verification. Brevis goes one step further. Once something is verified, Brevis helps decide what the application should do because of it. That's a different job. Finally, there's Herodotus. Herodotus is very specialized. Historical storage proofs, narrow scope, very precise. Brevis is broader. It's not a single tool. It's a coordination layer. So when you zoom out, the competitive field looks like this. On one side, you have trusted systems, fast, cheap, but opaque. On the other side, you have pure ZK systems, correct, secure, but heavy. Brevis is trying to sit in the middle, giving protocols a way to compute off-chain without trusting the computation and without paying maximum security costs every time. Now, one more honesty check. Brevis is EVM first, Ethereum and its layer 2s. That's not a limitation by accident. That's a design choice. Supporting multiple execution models is not a toggle. It's a full architectural problem. Brevis chose to get one environment right before pretending it can handle all of them. That limits reach today, but increases credibility. So this is the real race. Brevis versus centralized decision logic. Brevis versus trusted backends. Brevis versus silent systems that decide outcomes without proof. If crypto stays loose, those systems survive. If crypto grows up, if enforcement matters, if audits matter, if fairness matters, then verifiable computation becomes mandatory. And that's the world Brevis is building for. Which brings us to the final step. If this machine survives, if it gains adoption, if crypto scales, what does this look like in a $20 trillion market? That's where Lulu steps back in and we run the scenarios. All right, now we get to everyone's favorite part, the money. But before numbers start flying, we need to set the table correctly, because infrastructure does not move like memes. It does not pump on slogans, and it does not survive on vibes. Money here follows usage. Now there's one signal we need to talk about before we run the scenarios. Community. People assume infrastructure means nobody's paying attention. That's not true here. Brevis is sitting around 460,000 followers on X. That's not small, and it's not accidental for a backend infrastructure project. That's real visibility. But this is not a meme army, and it's not engagement farming. This is awareness. Developers, protocols, ecosystem players. That's what community looks like for infrastructure. They don't chant, they integrate. And that matters because community here is not the fuel, usage is. So with that context in place, now we bring Lulu out. Lulu is the head of technical analysis here in the garage. She's the one running the models, stress testing assumptions, and sanity checking outcomes. So when numbers come up, they come from Lulu. Let's anchor where we are right now. Brevis is trading at about 38 cents. Circulating supply is roughly 250 million tokens. That puts the current market cap just under $100 million. Call it 95 million. Fully diluted supply is 1 billion tokens. So fully diluted value today is about $380 million. And for context, total crypto market cap right now is about $3.09 trillion. That's the starting line. Now let's run the scenarios. Scenario 1 stays about the same. Crypto grows to $20 trillion, but Brevis never really gains relevance. It gets used where verifiable computation is absolutely required, ignored everywhere else. In this case, Brevis keeps roughly the same slice of the market it has today. That puts it around $600 million in total value. With 1 billion tokens fully diluted, that's roughly 60 cents per token. Call it 50 to 70 cents. And this is important. This scenario assumes no traction, and it assumes full dilution has already played out. This is the survival case, not the growth case. But here's the reality. Brevis is still early. Adoption is still forming, and the market has not yet been forced to care about provable computation. So there is room to grow from here. And the moment Brevis captures even a little more usage, even a little more relevance, the math changes fast. Scenario 2 gains traction. Crypto grows to 20 trillion, and Brevis starts to matter. Not everywhere, not for everything, but enough. More protocols decide they don't want trusted backends. They want provable logic for incentives, for rewards, for governance rules. Brevis becomes a known standard in its lane. If Brevis captures somewhere between 0.2% and 0.5% of a $20 trillion market, that's $40 to $100 billion in total value. With 1 billion tokens fully diluted, that's roughly $40 to $100 per token. That's not moon math. That's what happens when infrastructure gains relevance without needing dominance. This is execution getting paid. Scenario 3 is the infrastructure moment. Crypto doesn't just grow, it matures. Institutions show up, regulators show up, real accountability shows up. At that point, unprovable decision logic is not acceptable. It's not a preference, it's a requirement. If Brevis becomes foundational infrastructure and captures even 0.5% of a $20 trillion market, that's $100 billion, which puts the token around $100 fully diluted. This is the straight moonshot, not hype-driven, requirement-driven. Now, before anyone loses their mind, we need to talk black swans, a cryptographic flaw, but prover incentive failure, a competing standard that wins faster than expected, or a world where crypto simply never grows up. Any one of those breaks these scenarios. So hold up one second before you go and spend your kid's college fund. This is absolutely not financial advice. None of this is financial advice. And yes, the numbers you just heard came straight from Lulu. She is the head of technical analysis here, but just in case you're new, Lulu is a pig. 4 hooves, curly tail, the whole situation. She can read a chart better than most humans, but she is still a pig. So if you are taking financial advice from a pig, that's on you. What we're giving you is structure, scale, and context. All right? Now, let's put this thing on the dyno and see where it actually lands. Perfect. Here is the dyno outro with clear section-by-section scores. Clean, authoritative, no jokes, avatar ready, and it flows straight into the call to action. Everyone, this is where we stop talking and put numbers on the machine. No hype, no narratives, no vibes. Just the build. Technology and architecture comes in at 9 out of 10. This is real infrastructure. ZK coprocessor design, thoughtful trade-offs, and a clear understanding of what blockchains should and should not do. It's complex, but it's controlled complexity. Team and execution scores, 8.5 out of 10. This is a builder-led project with people who have shipped real infrastructure before. No cult behavior, no overpromising. The only reason it's not higher is because execution still has to compound. Problem relevance gets a 9 out of 10. Replacing trusted off-chain decision logic is not a small problem. It's a quiet one. And quiet problems tend to matter more as systems scale. This problem does not go away with time. It gets bigger. Tokenomics and fuel system scores 7 out of 10. The mechanics make sense. Fixed supply, clear unlocks, work token model. But there's no hiding the fact that usage has to grow. No usage, no burn, no shortcuts here. Competition and positioning comes in at 7.5 out of 10. The field is small, but it's serious. Brevis has a strong position, but this race is not over, and execution will decide everything. Community and visibility scores. 7.5 out of 10. Not hype-driven, not cultish, but clearly not invisible. Strong signal for infrastructure, still secondary to adoption. When we put it all together, this is not a meme. This is not a sure thing, and this is not something you buy and forget. This is a real machine with real upside and real risk. Final dyno score. Brevis comes in at 8.1 out of 10. Strong build, furious intent, still early, still needs to prove it can run hard over time. If this fits your thesis, you already know why. If it doesn't, there will always be another car coming into the garage. If you've got a project you want on the lift next, drop it in the comments. We read every one, and yours might be next. If this breakdown helped you, smash that like, hit follow or subscribe, and share it with anyone trying to understand what actually matters in crypto. Garage Gang, engines hot, safety off, let it rip.